What is up, Podheads? Episode 115 of the Podio Slave Podcast coming at you right now. I am joined, as always, except for once, Anthony and Nate are here with me. I'm Tony. How you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing great. I have the perfect attendance award. Nate can't say the same. He's got one absence, right?
Well, two really. So, but yes, like one full, one where I was like, showed up late, stoned, like, oh, dude, I'm still here. Like,
perfect attendance is bullshit, by the way. Like, you have reasons to not be here, and that goes for job, school, and podcast.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing to. I mean, we've been doing this now for, we're pushing 2+ years extra, and we being here every week and making sure that this thing gets off without a hitch is. It's not easy, man. It's not easy. Life happens and shit gets in the way, and it's hard to like be on that. But somehow we're back week after week and giving you guys that nerdery that you know and love. And tonight is no exception. We had an excellent guest tonight. Anthony, who did we talk to?
Yeah, we did. We had the one and only, and I know I say that every week, but I really, really mean it this week, the one and only Jesse Leach. You know him from Killswitch Engage, frontman from Times of Grace. He does the additional band with Adam D. He has like a punk band called The Weapon, which I don't know if we get into. Maybe it was before we started recording. We get into a little bit. When he was away from Killswitch, he had Seemless. He has a Stoke the Fire podcast. He's a DJ. Like, the guy does it all, and he was a great guest. And I don't mean that lightly. He was. I mean, you're here. You clicked on it. You like Jesse. You probably didn't come for us. You came for Jesse, and he lived up to the to the bill here. So I think, we're probably just going to get right into this. Jesse Leach, Killswitch Engage, Stoke the Fire Pod. Let's go.
Watching you speak, your arrogant face, it takes all my strength to restrain. Antagonizing attitude, ignorant words, they'll catch up to you.
What's up, Podheads? Tony here. Happy you guys have clicked on the episode and want to listen to us chat with Jesse Leach. Really appreciate that. But hey, we've got some other interviews back there that are definitely worth your time. We talked to Sergio Vega of Quicksand. We talked to Brian Fair of Shadows Fall. Tucker Rule of Thursday. We had Peanut from 311. We had Frank Turner. Man, we've had a bunch back there. There's a lot more, too. So go check that out. Go to podioslave.com for all things nerdery. We live there, everything's there, and hit us up at @PodioSlave on all the social media platforms. It's very easy to find, and we are very active and happy to talk to people there. So thanks.
So much hate that I can fucking take. It's not too late for you to see the real truth before you make a mistake. To put you in harm's way, there's no need for this.
First of all, Jesse, thank you for coming on with us. We really appreciate talking with you tonight.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm glad it finally worked out.
So Anthony recently saw you at the State Theater in Portland, Maine on the Atonement Tour back in, when was that, Anthony? March?
Early February,
yep. So really the question we have for you is, how do you feel about warming up the stage for Air Supply, who played the next night?
It's very intimidating, because I know Air Supply has almost like a mind control with their music. A lot of middle-aged women or even older women, are so wound up in them that it makes it quite difficult. So the pressure was definitely on for us that night. But, we actually contacted Air Supply after the show to see if they actually caught some of it. And they had somebody in the audience filming to make sure it was good enough. So Air Supply approved, apparently.
Nice.
You like that? I just bullshitted my wife to go.
That was perfect.
That was great.
Yeah. You're going to go out and tour with them next, right?
Yeah, dude, I'm so in, dude. I'm all out of love.
Yes.
I'm so lost without you.
Perfect.
That's actually the second person that sung on this podcast. We had Maddie from A Loss for Words from Massachusetts. He sang Shy, If I Ever Fall in Love, for a couple verses. So you're in good company there.
That's a great song, too. I know that one, too.
All right, let's hear it.
I will not sing that one.
Damn it.
So, Jesse, if you're up for it, we'd like to dial back the clocks a little bit. So you probably are aware, at the time of recording, we are about a week's shy of the 20th anniversary of Alive or Just Breathing. It dropped May 21st, 2002. So first question is, are you aware of the anniversaries like now?
Oh yeah, no, I did a full press on this, or I had an interview this morning about it. Yeah, people are very making us very aware of how old we are. Yeah, it's pretty incredible the fact that 20 years later people are still talking about that record, and the fact that we can still play, almost any song off that record and people know it, which is nuts.
So so take us back, like a week before. It's like 20 years from right now, a week before it released, you would have already obviously had it recorded, had the visuals done, probably a physical copy. Do you remember like the hype? Like, was it an internal buzz of like, this thing slaps, or like this thing is going to move units, or was there any thought about that?
No, we had a lot of people saying those things to us, but I didn't believe any of it. Coming from the hardcore scene where there's no such thing as rock stars, there's no signing autograph. At least back then, there was no signing autographs. People didn't give a shit. Like, we're in a band, we get off stage, we go to the merch table, we sell the t-shirts, and we watch the next band, and we're fans of that band. That's who we were. So when this album was made, sure, we knew we were getting on a label that had a roster of incredible bands that we all grew up listening to, whether it be, Life of Agony, Sepultura, Obituary, Machine Head. I mean, Roadrunner Records was the label and we were getting signed to it. So we knew it was a big deal. But honestly, our kind of like talk was, oh, well, hopefully they won't drop us and it'll sell just enough. Maybe we can continue touring. So our expectations were pretty low, which I think was good at the time. We didn't go in there thinking we're going to go become rock stars or whatever. We had no idea what was going to happen. None of us.
It's actually interesting too, because it was 2002. So you got to think, for us, you're coming out of the new metal scene circa 98 to call it 2001. So 2002 is almost ushering in this new crossover sound with a lot more complexity. And you guys were really spearheading a whole new movement in that sound dynamic. And I think Killswitch Engage was one of those bands that really ushered in, okay, this is the new phase of where metal's going. So
yeah, I think on the surface that's what it became. But we were standing on the shoulders of giants. I could list many bands in the New England area alone that were sort of getting into that style, like the blending of the melodic and the hardcore kids that started listening to like post-hardcore that incorporated metal riffs. I mean, I can remember seeing Slayer and Iron Maiden shirts coming into the hardcore scene, where even just 5 years prior to, you might get into a fight over that. Someone might like call you a Hessian and try to fight you at a hardcore show, or vice versa.
Yeah.
You're a short-haired kid going in with like an Earth Crisis shirt to a metal show. People are like, what is this dude here for? So there was a lot of like weird things going on. But when that started to mesh together, I think a lot of us from the New England area were looking over at Europe going, wow, these guys are onto something here. Soilwork, In Flames, At the Gates. And for me, the big one was Edge of Sanity, a band I don't think gets not even like way less credit than they deserve. Dan Swano was the producer of that, who actually helped get Opeth started. Opeth would be another band.
Nice.
Where you had these bands doing the melodic and the death metal growls already. So for us, it was mixing our hardcore roots, our like sort of like post-hardcore indie pre-emo roots, the Discord record stuff like Fugazi, Jawbox, Sunny Day Real Estate, At the Drive-In, all those bands we were fans of those bands as well, mixed in with Metallica riffing, Meshuggah were a huge influence on those guys, Carcass. So just like all this influence is mashed up into our sound. But I honestly think part of it was we were at the right place at the right time to sort of get that boost of being sort of looked at as the forefathers of this new genre that we didn't even call ourselves metalcore. That wasn't even the term. We're like, what is this?
Right. Yeah.
That was coined to sort of describe what was happening. But I can point back to, I mentioned Earth Crisis. I can mention Integrity was another band that was doing that blend of metal and hardcore before us. Mm-hmm. So, I humbly bow to all those people who paved the path. And I said Life of Agony, another one with melodic vocals, Only Living Witness. So there's a ton of people that I have to give credit to inspire us to do what we did.
Yeah, that Cleveland sound, that Syracuse sound. Yeah,
totally.
So it's 20 now, and I think the three of us all saw you on the 10-year anniversary tour too in Portland, Maine.
Yep.
And thanks for coming to Portland. We appreciate that.
Portland's great, man.
Is it something that like some people don't look back on the old stuff reverentially? Some are like, "Ah, man, that was me 20 years ago. It's not me today." How do you feel about it, looking back on it now 20 years later? Is it something that you're happy about, you love, you'll spin here and there, or is it something like, nah, I'm new now?
I don't listen to it. I tend not to listen to any of my stuff. I'd say, to be honest, the only thing I've been re-listening to is the New Times of Grace record, because to me it still holds a weird sentimental life to it. We've never toured on it. It's never been blasted into my ears over and over again to rehearse. So that record, Songs of Lost and Separation, I can still kind of put on and go, oh, this is nice. Wow, cool record. Where everything else, I've listened to it so much to rehearse for tour. I've played some of those songs so much that I don't ever just go casually put on Killswitch and go, check me out. I don't do that.
Yeah.
But that being said, I think that Alive or Just Breathing still holds importance. It still holds weight. It's still good songs. And that's the one thing I will stand by. Like, we started to write songs. Our first record of self-titled was stripped down metal with a hardcore influence with a touch of death metal. But it was more about just like riffs and like bludgeoning people with this sound that we were kind of wanting to put out there, where Alive or Just Breathing was more about songwriting. We consciously wanted to make songs. And I'm looking at bands like Faith No More, which all of us can agree in Killswitch that Faith No More was like one of those bands you would aspire to want to be, or even Pantera. They were heavy, but they had hooks. They had stuff you wanted to sing along to. So we were kind of looking at bands like that going, all right, we want to be heavy. We want to do our thing, but we want to write good songs. So that was a conscious effort. So I think those songs some of them still hold up.
I think they definitely do. I mean, from a fan's perspective, from self-titled to Alive or Just Breathing, I think the whole presentation's a level up. I think musically, obviously new label, Adam D coming into his own on the production side, vocally, it's a difference. And self-titled's phenomenal. It's more of just that Alive or Just Breathing, I think, is a true level up. And I think it's a blueprint that, for better or for worse, was copied and diluted so many times. And Jesse, you guys are to blame for that. No, you guys spearheaded that. I mean, you guys were the blueprint. And I would put Alive or Just Breathing in the Mount Rushmore of, we'll call it metalcore. And a lot of your company is ironically Massachusetts bands. I'd put Jane Doe in there. I'd put Art of Balance in there, and a few others. But like, do you feel that way, that, okay, I can kind of look at the landscape and I can hear a little of what we did? Do you feel that?
Yeah, I definitely do. And I think even more so back in the mid 2000s, it was like mind boggling. The amount of bands that would do the gruff verse and then, the slightly yelling bridge and then the big melodic chorus. It got to the point where it was almost like a joke. Like, you just could sort of like, oh, here comes the singy part. Here comes the talky part where he's like, I'm convicted about what I'm saying. It's going to get crazy. But, they say that imitation is the highest form of flattery. So I think for me, especially having stepped away from the band and hearing it and seeing it and having no part of it, I felt sort of validated as an artist, even though technically I had sort of quote unquote failed in my mind, because I walked away. I quit. I couldn't handle it, which is a whole other bag of worms. But I felt validated because there were a lot of bands that were sounding like that, and then I watched Killswitch just reached a whole other level of like, whoa, with End of Heartache, that was like, talk about leveling up. I would argue that they were one of the biggest metal bands in the world for a small amount of time with Howard there. And again, I felt like I was still kind of a part of it, because I helped.
I love that you acknowledge that not only the derivative bands, like first and foremost, that you acknowledge it and are actually willing to say it. Because I think a lot of people be like, yeah, no, they kind of sound like us, but like, no, I mean, yeah, without this record, a lot of stuff wouldn't exist. And then the fact that you're, kind of witnessing the band, get into a whole new stratosphere in saying, hey, I was part of that foundation, I think it says a lot about you.
Yeah, I think that's I've only come into that in my older years. I think at the time I definitely had admittedly some disappointment in myself, and then I wouldn't say envy, but definitely kind of kicking myself a little bit like, shit, man. Because I was in a band called Seemless at the time, and I actually started touring again, and we're playing in front of like nobody, for a long time, which I kind of needed to do to find myself. But now that I'm older and wiser, and I think a lot more humble, I have to acknowledge that. I think it'd be ridiculous for me not to.
Mhm.
And arrogant, and I can't stand arrogance. That's one of my big pet peeves. So yeah, hats off to everyone who paved the way, and hats off to Howard for taking Killswitch to a whole other stratosphere. And, then I was able to, like, for better, for worse, for some people, walk back in and stand on his shoulders as well. All of those guys, they put in so much groundwork where, 9 years later, I come back and I'm like mind-bogglingly blown away by how many people we're playing in front of. I'll never forget returning to the band and standing on stage in Europe and being like, whoa,
Yeah.
okay, I guess we're doing this. This is nuts. So yeah, I have to acknowledge people who put in hard work.
That's a really good point, actually, is returning to the band and the band standing on their own. Obviously, Howard Jones coming into the picture too, but the fact that it's an equal split on talent in the band is like you coming in with a rhythm section that's immensely talented, that you were able to come back into the picture and almost get a second opinion or second perspective. Like, oh, I was working with one of the tightest bands that were to ever come out of the scene.
Yeah, I still feel that way about those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes just even hearing them jam, like randomly on a guitar. Like one of my favorite things ever is when Joel picks up a guitar backstage or just decides he wants to jam on something and he starts playing the blues or whatever. The dude is like such an underrated, amazing musician. I'm blown away constantly by his skills. I mean, Adam, obviously everyone knows, and we all talk about how much of a genius Adam is. That's kind of like, yes, he is. But Joel, man, that guy, he's on a whole other level. And not even just with metal, with blues, with folk. He can play like, organ and banjo. Like the dude he's so talented. They all are in their own right. But, yeah, Joel just stands out to me lately just because I'm blown away by his diversity.
So we're fast forwarding, we'll come back to this in a sec, but when you came back, were you like, holy shit, these guys got even better than they were a decade ago?
I mean, I knew they were good because I had, as much as I wasn't truly paying attention to metalcore and metal when I was away from it purposely, and then just that's really not what I listened to, honestly. I knew they were big. I knew they were tight. I actually had to like really study their music before I rejoined. So I knew that the listening to some of the tracks on Daylight Dies, like I'm like, wow, amazing stuff, like really great songwriting and riffs. And it was getting more complex, but still palatable for the general population to hear it and nod their head. And like, you weren't getting lost in the time signatures like you do with some of those metal bands, but they're still writing smart songs. So I was aware of it. And for me, it was a bit intimidating because I knew I had to really like try to level up. And I in retrospect, I think it was a good couple of years of me trying to like catch up. And I felt very inferior and insecure for a lot of years there out on the road, just trying to find my own style, my own voice, and like, who am I to this band? Especially trying to fill in shoes of like someone like Howard Jones, who is one of the best voices in metal, period. Like the guy is just a beast. It's annoying at times, but also I'm very happy. But I'm very happy for my friend.
Yeah,
like taking him out on tour and watching him sing every night, and the couple nights where he was like, I could hear he was kind of rough. I was like, you are human. You do stuff.
Ran out of Vaseline.
yeah.
Yeah.
No, that I was gonna ask. Like that must have felt difficult. Like you're jumping back into a band that obviously was talented when you were in it, and was talented when you left for the 9 years, and was tight. I mean, when we saw you guys in 2011 for 10 years, or 2012 for 10 years, it was like, holy shit, this is the tightest band I've ever seen live. Like, oh my God.
Echoed that.
Yeah. Yep. Oh my God.
Yeah, I would say for me, I think the one thing I did bring to the game was I'm a bit more of a hardcore singer, so I kind of brought a little bit more of the hardcore back with Disarm the Descent. I think it's kind of a more of a vicious sounding record, especially if you look back at the self-titled, where I think they were kind of going into rock metal, territory, which was good. But, I think when I rejoined, they were all ready to like fire on all cylinders. So what I did lack in sort of the big melodic vocals, I kind of brought in some of the hardcore feel, which I felt like was my style at the time.
Actually, I got a question on that. So track 3 on Alive or Just Breathing is Fixation on the Darkness. When you come in vocally, it's that, obviously know what I'm talking about. That's been copied so many times. And I was thinking back to that time, like this was pre Hatebreed Perseverance, where Jamie was really bringing that. So where did you come up with that? Like, what was that your own thing, or do you kind of grab that from another band or another vocalist?
Death metal in general, I would say Entombed has a lot of great weird vocal noises. A band called Gorefest does it. Yeah, a lot of the European metal that I still, I'm an old school death metal head. You hear guys doing that, but Jamie was back then. Jamie's noise was
Yeah.
That was kind of the early Hatebreed. Just a 14.
That's right. It was that.
Hatebreed. Yep. It was the
Satisfaction era Jamie was very much that. And I know like Wolverine Blues for Entombed, I can see where that comes in. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm huge old school death metal fan, and Entombed are one of the best to do it, I think, ever.
So around this time, 20 years ago, was there a band or bands that you guys kind of pulled from to like, oh, well, that's how that's supposed to be done? Maybe, well, you got to get your chops seeing somebody live or picking something up, whether it be in the studio or live. Were there a band or two that you could kind of point to, like, yep, we learned a little bit from those guys, seeing them do their thing?
So many. I think the foundations of who we are came from Sick of It All, Cro-Mags, Bad Brains, Sam Black Church. And Sam Black Church, I think, were underrated for what they were doing, because they were a completely unique hardcore metal band. And without Sam Black Church, and Adam D will say this too, we wouldn't have the riffage in My Last Serenade, sort of that chugging and then pause, that early 90s sort of like mosh riffs. Those bands were huge on who we all were pre-Killswitch and carried over into Killswitch. But the European metal, I would say we would all agree, At the Gates, Slaughter of the Soul, and I'm still in awe of that record. I think it's probably one of the most perfect sounding, vicious, amazing, with a punk attitude, and the production's incredible. I would say between At the Gates and Carcass, they were probably the biggest on all of us could agree that those bands were like huge to help push us. And then as far as like seeing a band and like seeing, oh, wow, that's how they do it, I would say any band we toured with, starting with Soilwork, that first tour, watching those guys do what they do. And to this day, like Speed, what a vocalist, what a performer. So yeah, a lot of In Flames would be another one. We're all like, In Flames definitely wrote the blueprint for how a metal band should do it, with the melody, with the riffs, with the live stage presence. And those guys have gone through such different phases, and in my mind are still putting out good music, and it's still a great band, regardless of the member changes or whatever. I'll always be an In Flames fan.
Just saw him this past week on that Megadeth tour.
Yeah.
Killer. Love it. I love those guys. All of them, past and present.
Actually, that's a great question, Tone, because it just reminded me, as you came back to the band, did you basically just kind of revert back to that stuff to get back into that state of mind? Like, this is where I knew that I need to at least get to this par.
Yes and no. I kind of approached it with, I want to progress. So I didn't really look back. I was kind of looking forward and paying attention to what music was doing at the time and in 2012, and then deciding whether or not I was inspired by it or if I would just completely ignore it because it was horrible. But I also think at that point, I kind of had my identity down, like who I wanted to be and how I wanted to present myself. And a lot of it is natural. I certain stage movements that I just do from muscle memory from doing it for so long. But I was very inspired by just the guys in Killswitch. Honestly, like, it sounds cheesy to say, but truly listening to the demos for Disarm the Descent is kind of what helped me craft what I wanted to do on stage, the kind of like movements and stances and things like that, I don't plan to do those things, but they sort of develop as I'm writing a record. I can almost see it in a color scheme and almost can see it in like what kind of outfits I want to wear. It sounds super funny, but it's a whole package. And a lot of it is inspired by what those guys are just playing on the record.
Yeah, Alive or Just Breathing. I think it's one of those records for us that we would put in that like Thursday Full Collapse, At the Gates, Slaughter the Soul, like those albums that launched 1,000 ships. That there's a lot of stuff that came out after it, but it just doesn't touch it, and that's becomes the blueprint. So we wanted to pay that album some respect, and I love that you still play. Like when I saw you a few months ago, you still played My Last Serenade, which probably could have got the biggest crowd sing along, which has that massive chorus. So it lends itself to that, but it just shows you that people love that fucking record, man.
Yeah. And I really, excuse me, I really enjoy playing Rise Inside or Just Barely Breathing. Those are probably my two favorites to play live when we do pull them out, because they just feel epic. They feel timeless in a way, because the message in both of those songs to me still carries a lot of weight. Rise Inside being about unity and caring about your fellow human, and Just Barely Breathing sort of being that contemplating existence and wanting more out of life than what you're getting, which I think everybody can relate to that stuff. I can relate to that to this day. And I would have to say that a lot of that kind of came from just the synergy between us as a band. And I was writing very much from a place where I knew my voice would be heard on a much bigger platform. So I was kind of drawing from people like Joe Strummer from The Clash and Bob Marley with their messages that I rang true with me and where I was in my life. And I wanted to make important songs like that too. So I really took my time with lyrics on songs like that to make sure that they were hopefully timeless messages that can continue to be passed on. And when you sing it in a big room of people, there's a vibe there. You're saying something powerful that's positive and everybody's doing it.
Yep.
There's a real synergy and power in that. And I love that about music, where you can get like 2,000 people singing this beautiful thing about equality and, preserving human life and compassion. And you've got a bunch of people connected in a whole other way that, singing a song about kicking somebody's ass or like, upset at your girlfriend or whatever just doesn't do,
Right. No, totally. I mean, that's, you're preaching to the choir there. We love that shit. That's why we love doing this. That's why we love going to shows.
Yeah. Cause it's a lifestyle, really. It's not just music at that point. It's a culture. It's something you can stand behind and identify with that is positive. And to me, that's what music has always been about, whether it be hardcore music, hip hop music, reggae music, the upliftment of people, the upliftment of yourself. Like, that's still who I am to this day. It's a culture. It's something I learned from my peers and from my upbringing that stays with me to this day.
Jesse, you said something just now, which was going to kind of lead into my next question, which is the clinic or establishment or just fan club that we are, going to shows, seeing bands like you guys play. That took a big, pause during the height of the pandemic. And obviously we're still going through the pandemic now, but you guys dropped Atonement in August 2019, before the pandemic really kicked off, but you weren't able to really tour. I mean, you played Europe. We're obviously in the Northeast in California, so we weren't there, but the US tour was canceled. So with that said, kind of that unity and kind of spreading that, positive, message in a live format and being in a place to be able to put that music out there, what was that like, just to have to shut everything down and say, man, like, that's being taken away from us?
I would say initially there was some relief, to be honest, after, 9-10 years straight of touring and going back to that lifestyle, which is an incredible, magical thing to do. But I was on burnout just prior to leaving for that tour. I remember saying to my girlfriend at the time, who's now my fiance, I'm burnt out with tears in my eyes. Like, I just want to break. I want to break. I'm tired of talking to people. I'm tired of performing. I'm like tired. I'm exhausted. And I think one of the things I said to her too was, I just want to watch the seasons change. Like I miss just seeing like the leaves change and fall off for like spring. And fast forward to 3 months into the pandemic, and I was like, oh shit, this is not temporary. This is not going away.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when my wheels started turning and I started thinking in survival mode, like, okay, how long is this going to last?
Yep.
And then I started to lose a little bit of myself because I'm so wrapped up in that energy that I get from the audience, the energy you get from traveling and from being in a new place, and the buzz of live performance, all that was gone. And I slipped into a bit of a dark place for a little while there. I think anybody did. I mean, it was hard because there was no certainty. You were sort of on survival mode, and, you know, my savings was getting drained, and I had just never been in that situation. But I'm thankful to say I found a Zen-like moment in all of that where I forced myself to be grateful and practiced it daily. I'd wake up in the morning and the first thing out of my mouth would be like, thank you, God, for the breath of life. And I would list, and I did this meticulously every single morning, list what I was grateful for. And in my heart of hearts, I said to myself, if I never get to do live shows again, if my career is over, wow, what an amazing run it's been. So now what? How do I approach the day, and how do I not dwell in this misery? So I started to create little medial tasks for myself around the house. I started to get creative with teaching myself how to play piano again. Like just started taking on things that were positive that would keep my brain going. But I didn't realize how crucial playing in front of people it was until we got back to it. Mm-hmm. And when we started getting back to it with Slipknot on that first tour back, those first few days, I was like, wow.
Hell yeah.
That's the greatest high in the world. It really is, next to like, you know, exercising, which I think is a great high too. But there's nothing like it when you look out and you see people singing back at you with that look on their face, the desperation, the passion. I'll never, ever get tired of that. And it's all because of the audience. If the audience is there with you, they will take you to a whole other level. Doesn't matter what the band is doing. If the audience is there for you and they have your back, that's untouchable. And that's something that I cherish and will always cherish. But there was definitely a moment where I had to sort of meditate that out of my head to survive and to carry on and try to stay positive during the pandemic.
Yeah. I mean, you're right. We all felt that, right? It was whatever your day-to-day was completely changed. Everybody got uprooted or sent home or stuck in a room, and it was hard not to be, uncomfortable and down and worried about what's going to happen next. I mean, I know my job is around a lot of people typically too, and there was a day in the fall that year in 2020 that I was like, man, this is where I should be today, and I'm not, and I'm bummed right now. And I feel like 4 months later, 5 months later, it hit me. But I need that. I want that back. I hope we get back there, and fortunately we have. But like going to that first show this fall for me, I was emotional. I was like, I'm sitting in a room with people and they're playing music that I love, and everybody is excited about this feeling. So I know on our side of it, we love to have that stuff back and are happy that it feels that way for you too, you know?
Funny, you mentioned the first time going to a show, or my first show wasn't tour. I live up here in Woodstock, New York, which is like, as you would expect, a lot of hippie stuff. And there's a venue here that has like a beer garden. And during the pandemic, they had the tables far enough away where people were allowed to sort of be in the same area outside. And I used to love going to that place just because you could be around people, but still far enough away from them. And I remember I was getting ready to go grocery shopping, that place is right near where I go grocery shopping. And I had all my mask on, my gear, ready to get into the trenches in the grocery store. And I hear ska music. I hear a ska band playing, and I'm like, a live band. Holy shit. It's the first time I heard live music echoing through the neighborhood. And I took all my shit off. I kept my mask with me because you had to. And I ran over to this beer garden. And sure enough, this band called the Slackers that I love was playing. Nice. And there are people socially distanced in their little areas dancing. And I'm like, oh my God. And this is like, I don't know, 3 PM. So I ran in there and I got a drink and I found my little picnic table and started kind of skanking along with everybody looking around. And there's just tears. I got tears flowing down
That's
my
amazing.
face. And I'm like, and it's ska music. So of course you're going to get like super fucking happy. And I'll never forget that moment as long as I live, just being around live music and watching people dance. Yep. And celebrate and have fun. It was like mind blowing. Like I was calling my family, I was calling my girls, like ska music, dude. Listen. And I'm taking videos and it's me dancing. And it's like, yeah, that was a real moment, dude. I'll never forget that. Live music is life.
It is, man. It is.
So what about vocally? So we love all types of music on this podcast. We had the guitarist of the Wonder Years, kind of a pop punk band, Casey Cavalier. He was saying that his vocalist, Dan, would get on the Peloton and sing. So he'd get a workout and sing at the same time to keep his voice sharp. We had Brian Fair, obviously, from Shadows Fall, I think he was doing like plyometrics in his laundry room or something.
Yeah. He was doing squats and singing at the same time. Yeah.
So how do you I know you talked about the mindfulness, but what about like physically and vocally to stay sharp? Are you I have visions of you singing My Last Serenade on the piano while you're learning it.
No. And during the pandemic, I didn't sing at all.
Wow.
For most of it, I just stopped for various reasons. Number one, just to rest the voice. And number two, just because I didn't have it in me. I didn't care. I wanted to do other things. So I was programming electronic music, learning piano, and that was kind of fulfilling my need to sing. And then we got the opportunity to do the whole play a song online in your separate locations. And it was for Times of Grace because we had to promote the record we were going to put out. And I'll never forget getting back on that sort of vocal thing and starting to do it, because you have to start slow. When you take a big break like that, you need to do a warm up in 15 minutes, stop. The next day, a warm up, 25 minutes to a half hour, stop. Build your way up and then take a break. And it's a whole thing. It takes a couple weeks to get warm again.
Wow.
So once I started doing that, I was like, oh, I'm not bad at this. I'm pretty good at this. This is who I am. Holy shit. And I also think having that big break really helped my voice a lot, because I'm able to use it in a much different way than I ever did. Even prior to, after my vocal surgery that I had in 2018, there was still a few years of me sort of navigating my new voice. But I think post-pandemic, it's the best I've ever sounded live. And it's a lot to do with just proper technique and about a year of solid rest.
Wow.
But yeah, so when I'm in touring mode and I come home for a few weeks and I'm going back out, I'll take 3 or 4 days off and then I begin the whole process again. And it's a lot of it is just me blasting a track through my house and grabbing a microphone and plugging into a little amplifier and pacing back and forth in my living room, pretending that my front window is the audience, and literally going for it in my living room while my girlfriend's doing stuff around the house. My cats are running around staring at me like, what is this movie doing?
Can you live stream that?
Right.
Or I'll go for a long ride in my car or my truck. Now I have a truck, and blast it and sing along. So people will pull up at a stoplight next to me and I'm going for it.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
I was hoping you'd tell us you were on a trampoline and you were doing diamond push-ups.
I know. I've seen Bruce Dickinson do it on a bike. He'll sing in bike. I don't do that stuff. Maybe I should. If Bruce Dickinson does it, maybe I should start doing it.
Yeah. While flying a plane at the same time.
Or fencing. Yeah.
And singing for 3 hours straight when you're in your 60s, no problem.
That's wild. Yeah.
We're not singers. We're just average Joe schmoes, but I've done karaoke, one song, I'm done. So I can't imagine being a vocalist. I know obviously you're trained and you've done it your whole life, but man, when we saw you in February, that was 18 songs and you sounded as good as you've ever sounded.
Thank you. Technique. Nice. Hats off to Melissa Cross. She saved my career. I had beaten myself up to the point where, when the doctor went and looked at it, he's like, I got to tell you, I haven't really seen a vocal cord like this in my life. I can't guarantee you anything. You might come out of this surgery and you might not be able to do this ever again.
Wow.
But thankfully, through the amazing people that work for me and help me, I was able to get the surgeon who did Adele, the vocalist Adele's surgery. So he's one of the top guys in the country, the world really, to do this type of surgery. He killed it. You know, I had 2 months of silence prior to the surgery, them trying to figure out what was going on with me. And then my recovery time was like 4 weeks. So I got the surgery within 4 weeks. I was on stage in front of 11,000 people in Tallinn, Estonia, opening for Iron Maiden.
Wow.
And probably singing better than I ever have in my career because of that. Doing stuff like vibrato, which I've never been able to do. But I was still using a technique that they call false chord, which is a full-on scream where you're using much more of your muscles in your body to make the noise. And since that time, I've lost my voice a few times due to overuse. So I've switched over to a fry. So now when you come see the band live, I'm doing a fry technique, which is I switched techniques after 20 years. And in the past 2 tours we did with Slipknot, and then when you guys saw us, I was using a completely different technique, which you can't really tell.
No,
live.
you can't.
It's a different technique, but that saved my ass. And because of that technique, my vocal folds aren't swollen. So I'm actually in tune now more than I used to be. It was really hard for me to stay in tune live because I'm beating the shit out of my voice every night. So yeah, game changer for sure. And that's all Melissa Cross's Zen of Screaming technique. She is incredible, and she saved my ass.
Damn.
This is crazy. I mean, I'm just like, my gears are spinning because you think about, like, you know, it's only 2022. Like, there's been opera since the beginning of time. Like, they sang their hearts out and obviously made it through night after night. So it's like, it can be done. But there's also, it's 2022. So there's voice track, there's, you know, auto recording. You can make all these tricks and do the thing. But in metal, like, we know when it's being faked. So you can't take those shortcuts even if you wanted to.
Do you though? Do you? Because I'll tell you, there are bands that are tricking you. Oh, they're there.
I'm sure there are. I'm sure there are.
I say nothing.
Metal karaoke is what you're saying? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you know, and one of the analogies that I got from Melissa Cross was, do you ever hear a baby like lose its voice? No. Babies scream and cry all day, all night.
That's a good point. Yeah,
they're completely fine. They scream in pitch. They're incredible vocalists. We are born with the ability to do it. We just unlearn it as our anxiety and our thoughts and our brain come into play. And we think before we speak. We're babies. Their belly's distended like a little Buddha, and they're just, just doing it. They're going for it. They're not thinking about anything. So she calls it the Zen of Screaming because essentially you have to be in a very calm space to do what we do without damaging yourself. So it can be done. You just have to calm down and train and like relearn how to scream like a baby, pretty much.
That's awesome.
It's like the monk on the Rage Against the Machine cover. Like, he's not screaming. He's in Zen mode on fire. Like,
which I'm actually glad you brought that up because breathing techniques have become a huge part of my routine as well, meditation. And there's a guy named Wim Hof who's fairly popular now about his breathing techniques, and he endures cold temperatures. He's adapted what the Buddhist monks do with their breathing and meditation, and he's actually been able to like raise the body temperature, lower the body temperature, fight off diseases. They inject this guy with like stuff. I don't remember what it was, but he meditated it out of his body. Like the brain and what monks have been doing, that the Shaolin monks have been doing for thousands of years, we have access to that too. It's just training. You have to care enough to like really go inside your mind. And so that's been huge too. I've meditated almost daily when I'm on tour. I meditate constantly and have learned breathing techniques to help me sing better and sing and speak better and exercise better. And it's helping with my anxiety as well. So that's another part I have to talk about is breathing and meditation is huge to being a vocalist as well. And I think everyone should be doing it anyway, because it can replace some of those drugs we're all on for our problems. We have the power in our minds to access amazing shit. And Buddhist monks have known that for thousands of years. That's why that guy can set himself on fire and just sit there unaffected.
Shutting things off.
It can be done. They do it. It's
unbelievable.
nuts.
I know, that was a tangent. That was an old school tangent right there. I love it
though.
Yeah. Get me started, man.
We're just getting going. All right. So you finally get back on the road like 2.5 years after an album drops, which under any normal circumstances just wouldn't happen, right? So things could go two ways, right? You're like, well, shit, that feels like old material, or you're super excited to finally play that stuff live. So where were you in that camp? So the Atonement tour, when we saw you, were you just happy to be out there? Or even the Slipknot Knotfest Roadshow, were you like, well, I'm not in that same headspace when I wrote these songs 2 years ago?
They felt more relevant to me than
Right on.
they did when I wrote them. Especially with everything we've been through. I can go back and, I mean, I can pick any one of those songs and be like, this is more accurate than it was when I wrote it. Yeah, I love that record. I think it really, to me, and I hate to play favorites, but Atonement to me is probably one of my favorite Killswitch records, next to probably Disarm the Descent. And then I would say Alive with Just Breathing after that, honestly. And I know it's kind of typical for people to go, I like my newest record. I truly do though. And I think it really marks a time in Killswitch's career, and hopefully people will look back and go, wow, that was kind of a different record. And I think a lot of that has to do with the lyrics and the mindset I was in when I was writing those songs. So I was excited, loved it, and felt like it was important. What I was saying had stuff that matters, especially a song like I Am Broken Too, that just, I feel like so many people can relate to that. So many people have this tattoo on them. I get messages to this day on a regular basis about that song. So to me, it's like I'm doing something for somebody, and that means the world to me.
I mean, even just the song titles, Us Against the World, Know Your Enemy. I mean, those would resonate with people pretty heavily in 2022.
Absolutely. Yep. Crazy.
You're like, yep, I wrote those.
Yeah, I know.
I know.
You knew the pandemic was coming, man. Damn you.
It's so weird you say that, because if you really read some of those lyrics, it did feel like I kind of
agreed. That's kind of the spirit of that. Yeah.
But I think that's the beauty of like when I am going to skirt the line of possibly sounding like a dick here, but pretension. But when you're a real artist and you open yourself up, I clearly don't think it's just me. There's a collective consciousness. There's an energy. There's something that I'm tapping into that I truly believe is in all of us. And I think some artists are able to just catch that and be able to put it out as art. And I think I've done that a few times, but I say that humbly, meaning that I truly believe it has something to do with all of us and our collective consciousness. And I'm honored that people feel that way about the music that we've done and the connectivity we have through music.
And the great thing about stuff like you put a record out in 2019 and obviously not knowing what the world's going to do 8 months later, but it can be kind of interpreted whatever way the listener wants to interpret it, right? You're leaving some of that open for them to take it their own way. And that's got to be kind of fulfilling too. That's
intentional too. I'm a poet first and foremost. I love poetry. I love words. And I try to keep it open-ended, where I know I'm writing about a specific thing or maybe two specific things, but my hope is when you hear the song and you read the lyrics, you kind of take on your own meaning for it. You know, the idea of you write something or create something, and once it's out there for public consumption, it's no longer mine, it's ours, it's yours. So for me, like explaining songs, which they always like, when you're promoting a record, it's always like, oh, go track by track and talk about each song. And I was like, I mean, cool, but I love when people just have their own idea. Like My Last Serenade, case in point. When that song came out and the video came out, people were like, oh, it's a breakup song. It's this, it's that. And I denied it till I was blue in the face. I was like, it's not what it's about. And it was. But people take on their own meaning, and it means so much to them. And I don't want to like over-explain something and sort of rob them of that. But I think if you write with a broad enough brushstroke, hopefully it stands the test of time, and it means different things to different people.
That's a great point. There's even a website, right? Songmeanings.com. And like you look at like the thread of like what it means to different individuals. And it's like, you know, Lady A and Guy B is like the stories are polar opposite, but it's cool that it transcends to them in a different light completely. And it gives new birth to that song. You're like, oh, that's the way they're living their movie. This guy's living the movie this way. I'm living the movie somewhere in the middle. Yeah. Just shows that if you make it broad, like you said, but also touching the nerves of the collective humanity, you're doing something right, which is really cool. And obviously your rhythm section helps you in that regard too.
Oh yeah, of course. But that's something I truly work on. It's not something I'm just saying comes out of me. Like I really try and painstakingly so losing sleep over a line in a song that I just want to be perfect. And I drive myself crazy because I care that much. Because to me, it's not just music, it's something else. There's a ritual to it.
Just go full Deftones and make it the broadest stroke you could possibly go.
I know, but that works for them though, right?
It does.
The conviction and the sound of his voice, it doesn't even matter what he's saying. And I'm like, oh, it's so good. What's it about? I have no idea, but it makes you feel a certain way. Like there's like a seductiveness to some of that Deftone stuff where like, I don't know what's going on, but I love it.
Yep.
All right. So one of the things that like set the internet on fire when you guys toured was obviously with Howard and Light the Torch, and you bring him on stage, and you actually brought him back for the song Signal Fire, track 2 in the album. So how was that to share that on stage? Because it doesn't happen. So it suggests to me that there's a good relationship there and there's a mutual respect, and it was like a celebration in my eyes. I loved it.
Yeah, that was from the jump when I initially had him come out on stage during the Iron Maiden tour in 2018. We played 2 nights at the O2 Arena in London, which is a huge venue. And he was in town doing press for Light the Torch. So the moment I found that out and saw him, and he came in to say hi, because we're all on good terms at that point, I was like, dude, you should come out and do End of Heartache tonight. And he's like, oh, okay. Like, just like, what? I'm like, yeah, it'd be really cool. I think just like a nod to the fans, like, hey, Howard's here and he's in the building. Let's bring it on stage. And a light bulb sort of went off in my head, which led me to writing the Signal Fire with him in mind. And then fast forward to what you're talking about. To me, it was very intentional. It's like, all right, we're going to do this. We're taking Light the Torch out on tour. This is how we should do it. What do you guys think? And everyone in the band was like, I mean, if you're cool doing that. I was like, dude, I feel like it just needs to happen. It needs to happen to show the fans that there's no bad blood. And I just think to respect the legacy of what he has done to help project this band into the stratosphere, and to respect his work. And the fact that I'm singing his material for like 9 years, there was a real interesting connection with him without even really knowing him that well up until a few years ago, that it felt necessary. And I really wanted it to signify the unity that is within the Killswitch camp, because we are a big, weird, dysfunctional family. And I'm proud of Howard for getting his life together and getting back out there and creating great music. I love Light the Torch. I'm a fan of what they do. I think he's great. Those guys are a great live band. So it's kind of a no-brainer. And for me to be able to like walk off stage and hand him the microphone and go, you're on, and like look at the audience, go, please welcome Howard Jones, and the place goes nuts. There was such a sense of like a greater sense of pride in us as brothers, and to stand there side stage and watch those guys do it with Howard again, and to see the joy that came into his eyes and his performance. And it's something I'll never forget. And I definitely want to do it again. We've talked about potentially doing that in Europe and the UK as well, bringing Light the Torch out and having him come on stage and do it. Because yeah, it's much bigger than just 5 guys. It's all of us. It's the fans. It's past and present members. It's everybody. It's Killswitch as the legacy that's important to a lot of people, and egos shouldn't play a role in that. And I feel like any band that's had 2 singers that hasn't done it, it's probably just because of ego or bad blood or something. And,
totally.
And I think I'm proud enough to say that the Killswitch camp isn't like that.
You didn't take as long as Van Halen.
Yeah. Yeah, Van Halen. Oh boy.
That's a great point. Yeah, it's counterintuitive. It's like, oh wait, we're all fans of the music, so if you guys can get along, us as fans, we're here for it. Keep both singers on stage.
Yeah. I don't know if we would do a full like 50-50 like that best of both worlds thing, but yeah. I definitely am open to have him come up and do a few songs again, because it feels right. It does. And it doesn't kind of like get in the way of the progression of the band. I don't really want it to like step back and be too retrospective yet, because
Totally.
it feels like the death of progression. And I don't want to be that band that's the festival band that plays the 10 popular songs and goes away. Like,
Yep.
when that starts to happen, I'm going to be very sort of like, I don't know if I want to do this anymore.
Yep.
But yeah, you're right. Like it's 20, 25 plus years of legacy of Killswitch. So it's cool to be able to do that and have, the fans kind of get a little bit of both. I mean, it's obviously the group is what it is now, but taking Light the Torch out and seeing Howard for a couple of songs that's pretty badass. Extra kind of treat for anybody seeing you guys live.
Yeah, and I think Light the Torch deserves it too. They're a great band putting out great music, and it's fresh. It's, you can sing along to it. It's still heavy, and it's an all-star lineup of great musicians. So, and I'm a fan of those dudes. So it's kind of a no-brainer.
So speaking of live music or live records in general, you guys are putting out a live record on June 3rd of this year at a local venue for us, and we're from Maine. So Palladium was like our second home, other than the State Theater in Portland, Maine. But Portland gets skipped a lot, so we go to Worcester quite a bit. So this record is being put out. It was a live streaming event, right? It wasn't even like a full-on concert.
Yeah, no, there was like 8 people in the building. Yeah, and it was
including you guys, or
yeah.
no, yeah, no. In addition to, so yeah, about 14, 15 people. Yeah, and we were there for about a week or so, just jamming and coming back together for the first time ever, being in the same room for the first time together since the pandemic, and running through those songs every day, and then finally just knocking them out, doing 2 or 3 takes with a full crew there. It was nerve-wracking, but it was also a lot of fun. And when we were done with it, it was like, wow, we did that. That's crazy. And we didn't have any plans at all on putting it out. It just kind of happened. We streamed it. It did well, but we felt like we wanted to get more leverage, more, content out of this thing we worked so hard on. So came out pretty good, man. I'm pretty happy with it. For a live recording, it's decent. And we didn't do the whole like studio, make sure everything's perfect thing that most live records go through. We didn't do a lot of that stuff. So you're getting what
Nice.
you see is what you get. And I'm proud of that.
Nice.
And brain chemistry wise, was it like when you're performing, you're looking at an empty crowd? Is it almost like similar or adjacent to like studio time? You're putting your heart into it, but you're not actually performing to a crowd. You're more like doing it for the recording.
It's a bit of recording, and then on the physical side of it, it's like shooting a music video, because if you shoot a music video, that's usually a full day of doing the damn song. And obviously you're not playing it, you're playing to a track for that, but it's that same energy of like, we're doing this, but we're kind of not doing it.
Yeah, right.
Because there's no audience there. But in the back of my mind was like, these cameras represent tens of thousands of people potentially. So I was playing a lot to the camera during the video of that. And then, sonically, I think it comes off pretty well because the live energy, if you watch it, Adam D's not running around like a total maniac because there's no audience. So I think the playing was a little more solid because of that, where live tends to get a little out of hand for all of us. At least we notice. Some people don't notice, but we notice it gets a little sloppy because we're just energetic. But it's live music, man. It shouldn't be perfect.
No, right, exactly. That's part of the experience, is that you might get a fuck up, but it's a cool fuck up and you turn it into something. You never know what it's going to be.
Hopefully, if you're good enough to pull it off, yeah.
You guys, Nate said we got passed over in Portland a lot. Killswitch didn't pass us over.
That's true.
It's everybody else that doesn't like to come up to Maine. But the Palladium, you picked the Palladium. Was that like by choice? Was that the place we got to go there? Or was there something else in mind? Or is that just it was always the Palladium?
From what I know, I mean, it wasn't always a Palladium. We definitely weighed our options, but it feels like a hometown thing for us. We had our first show there ever, which was kind of a huge factor. Is like, we should go back to the place we started it all to do our first show back, because it just felt like a new beginning. And then number 2, we got 3 guys, because I live like 2.5, 3 hours from there. 3 guys in the band that are pretty much here. So the other 2 guys just flew in. And our local crew is pretty much from around this area. It's kind of a no-brainer. And the Palladium was more than happy to accommodate us, the hometown boys. So we got a good rate too. So it just kind of all came together.
Was the first show upstairs or downstairs when you guys played?
Oh, upstairs. Yeah. Yeah. It was us, Shadows Fall, In Flames, Dark Tranquility, I think maybe 300 something people in that room.
Wow.
I think Brian Fair mentioned that possibly when he was on.
I think you did. Yeah,
with
I
us.
think you're right.
And I do not remember that show at all.
No.
Just probably a ball of nerves. I do not remember.
Yeah.
And I remember too, because a couple months later after that show, Mike D's showing me In Flames. I'm like, oh, I'd never heard this band. This band's amazing. He's like, we just played with them. Like,
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
That's great.
All right, Jesse, let's take it to present day. Like, what's next for you creatively? So we'll start with Times of Grace. And I actually have a question for you. One of the unique live show experiences that we've had on this podcast is we went to see the artist Beck. You probably know Beck.
Oh, yeah, of course.
He opened for himself with an acoustic set.
Wow.
So my question to you is, would you, as Times of Grace, ever open for Killswitch? Would
No.
you put yourself through that vocally?
No, not at all. No, not even just vocally, but aesthetic wise. Adam and I really love the idea of that being completely something different, which sonically even we pushed the genre further because we do want to separate ourselves even more so from that. And when we do play live again, we really want it to be more of an experience, like where we could, in the middle of the set, have a couple of acoustic songs, have carpeting on stage, have incense burning, have a backdrop with some of the videos playing while we play, have it be more like an evening with, as opposed to you grab a beer and you're like, yeah, this is going to be the show. Times of Grace be more of like an audio visual experience where we can sort of like
That's great.
push ourselves in a different genre. And I like that because it's fun. We do the same thing all the time. And putting Times of Grace before Killswitch, I just feel would be super anticlimactic because it is such a different vibe.
Yeah.
And it's artistic and it just doesn't feel, we even want to look differently on stage, like as testament to when we did tour, we were sort of like dressing up a little bit. And I think that would continue with what we're going to do one day when we do Times of Grace live again. So yeah, the further we can get away from Killswitch, I think the better. Just keep it completely separate.
Yeah, it's a good question for the fan too. I feel like, you wouldn't be able to give 100% to Killswitch if you were already on stage. Like Tone, we saw Queens of the Stone Age. I don't even know what year it was. And
05, 06.
05, 06. Eagles of Death Metal were originally opening that tour, and Josh is the drummer for that band. And he was like puking up blood the first like 6 dates, and they're like, all right, they're out because Josh needs to be ready for like the headlining slot. So they actually canned it. So like you'd basically be doing yourself a disservice.
Oh yeah, it's hard enough for me to do the regular freaking set.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm shot after. I'm like,
Yeah.
too old for this shit.
And tomorrow night I'm going to open for us again. Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Yeah.
Nope.
Economically, though, might
Yeah, right? Paid twice.
Yeah.
I'll see you at the merch booth, and then I'll be on stage after.
Yeah.
I'm going to perform at the merch booth.
Hey, shit, there you go. You've got the Stoke the Fire pod. I actually saw you posted something today. You're getting back into that a little bit here, maybe in the near future.
Yeah, we are. It's going to be slightly different, though. We're going to really focus on, as far as what is going out there for free would be sort of bigger names. And then we're going to do the Patreon thing and do other episodes that are more in depth, probably longer listener episodes. And then if all goes well, the idea is to take it on the road and do a video side of it where we would potentially put out a travel type show where Matt and I would get together and do like a road trip, down Route 66 through the desert and stop off at, say, someone like Josh Homey's house and have a fire in his backyard and talk to him about his life. And then go, visit a chef in New Orleans and be at their restaurant and like make it sort of like an Anthony Bourdain, no reservations / parts unknown, in addition to the actual podcast. And that's just like me sort of forward thinking and like what we really want to do with this now that hopefully we're getting back to this position where we can be in people's houses and have live events and stuff. So we are kicking it up a notch and going full on independent. We're not going to be on a network and it'll be less frequent. So when we are on a network, we had to do a show once a week. Mm-hmm. It'll be maybe once every 2 weeks. And then again, focusing on trying to push it more towards a show as opposed to just a podcast.
Gotcha.
So we'll see. That's the idea.
Yeah, because you did that live event like what 6 weeks ago or so in New York, and yeah, so there's some plans to do a little more of that.
Yeah, it felt great to be in front of a live audience and to be able to have the feedback immediately where the audience could interact with the person on stage. And we even pulled people from the audience on stage to talk. Like that whole thing just really takes what we want to do with Stoke the Fire to a whole other level. And that's what it's all about, man, connecting people. And I could fully see that becoming something I could do into my older years, even when like, you know, I can't tour anymore, whenever that is. I love traveling and I love food and I love people and I love experiences. So I could see myself in the long run doing that type of thing for a long time.
Nice.
It's a great podcast. I mean, anyone that listens to us that hasn't checked it out, definitely check it out. Like you and Matt have a good vibe going on. And at least for me, I've found that our guests that are our musical guests that are also podcasters make the best guests. And their podcasts are great. Like Benny Horowitz of the Gaslight Anthem's great. Casey from the Wonder Years, they'll have podcasts. And when we get them on, it's like, we know they're going to be great guests.
Yep.
I think my one issue is when I'm guest, I tend to talk too much. But when I'm a podcaster, you're like super hyper conscious of like, don't talk too much. Let
Exactly.
yeah. Talk. So I'm being your good guest and just rattling off and blabbering because I don't get,
baby. They don't want to hear us. They want to hear you.
They didn't come here for us.
I don't get the opportunity to do that. You know, it's so a lot of the stuff I do is pretty standard, you know, like media stuff. So when I get on deeper topics, I tend to ramble a bit.
We love it. I mean, that's kind of the best part of this you know, medium is that you can just kind of go off on something and tell us about how you changed the way you sing. And like, that's not something you're going to get in a 15-minute hit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think people are interested in that kind of stuff because I know I am.
Mm-hmm. We are too.
I listen to podcasts and I hear stuff that I would never hear. I love that. That's to me, it makes it so much more interesting.
Yeah, that's why we started this. We couldn't find it, so we're like, all right, fuck it. Guess we'll just do it ourselves.
I love it.
But actually, I want to kind of circle back to Killswitch. So you guys did the tour or the shows with Slipknot last year, and then you guys are doing Aftershock. So I'm down here in San Diego. You guys are going to Sacramento. Is that one of the few shows you guys are doing this year, and anything else going on for touring?
That will be announced very soon, and people
Nice.
are going to be pretty stoked. We're going out with some killer bands. Yeah.
So what you're saying is you will not announce it
You're not
on
going
this
to announce
podcast?
that. All right, fair enough.
I am unable to announce.
Just totally good.
Yeah. No, that's cool. We get it.
I wish I could give you exclusive, but I would get in trouble.
Stopping recording right now so you can. No.
That's all right. I'll get up to Sacramento, and I'll just hope that a San Diego date follows, and these guys can check you out on.
I
the
know.
East
Yeah,
Coast.
we'll have to fly out. He always comes to Portland, so we got to go out there, right?
Yeah, and it's fun to go, especially to San Diego. That's a fun little area, man.
Right. Yeah.
Yep.
Any new? It's been 2+ years now since Atonement. Any new music on the horizon? Or we have to wait on that too.
So this morning, I did an interview with Adam D. We were talking about Lavages Breathing 20 Year. And as soon as the interview finished, Adam D's like, I got to go. I got to meet the guys and go jam. So those 4 guys are in Massachusetts jamming new stuff. So it's literally day one. Today is day one of us figuring out what's going on with the new record. So
Nice.
I'm curious. I have no idea.
I mean, you piqued our interest.
And I wanted to be there, but my parents are coming to stay with me for a week and I have a huge family reunion. So I don't even know. I'm going to get like a Dropbox folder of stuff at the end of the week. So
That's cool.
It's kind of fun though. I mean,
yeah, I can't wait, dude. And then it's going to be overwhelming, but yeah, we'll see what happens.
so this is tangent. How do you get that, say, Dropbox? Do you just pick one and try to like hone in on that for a little bit, or do you listen to it all and then get some ideas, kind of storyboarding?
My big thing is, especially if it's more than one song, is to like, you know, either go for a long car ride or a long bike ride or a hike or sit by the fire and just kind of play it for a while. And the moment something strikes in my head, I'll hone in on that song. And then I'll do voice notes on my phone or just anything. The moment inspiration strikes, everything stops around me and I must figure it out. If it's a melody, I'll hum it into my phone. So my phone has like, and I still have some of the stuff, like me just humming or saying nonsense or talking, and tons of that. And then when I'm ready to like tackle the song, I have like Post-it notes and bar napkins and sound bites from my phone. And there's the song sometimes. That's just how it works. So I just try to follow inspiration, because when it hits, it's so precious. You got to like capture that moment when it's there. If not, you might lose a great song.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting how that answer varies. Like you hear about artists, like they'll leave a voicemail of like a lyrics or a harmony, or like I listened to an interview with Scott Vogel of Terror recently where he lives out of his notes app in the iPhone of lyrics, like any idea, any phrase that he can build around that. And you're pointing to yourself, so I assume that's what you do.
100%. Yeah, it's voice notes and notes. Yeah.
Yep.
So it'll be voice notes and then eventually transcribed into notes, and then from notes I'll paste it into an email or paste it into something and print it out. But notes is life for sure.
That's cool. It's just proof that like you're not tapping into it. The idea is actually tapping into you. You just need to capture it and like.
That's kind of what I was trying to say earlier about writing songs. Like it isn't just about you. It's about what is inspiration? Where does that come from? I'll wake up in a sound sleep sometimes and I'm like, I don't know where that came from, but holy shit, that's awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, write it down or talking to your phone and just make sure it doesn't go away.
Yeah, seriously. I did that today with a melody because I'm like trying to piece together solo material for a completely different vibe. And I've got about 4 ideas, but today I sang an entire song into my phone off the top of my head, melody wise, and now I got to figure out how to play it like that. I don't know where it came from either. And I'm like, whoa, what the fuck? I just did it. And it's verse, chorus, bridge. Like it's there in my phone. It probably sounds horrible because I'm humming first thing in the morning, but like, I don't know. It just came out of me. Where did that come from? I have no idea.
Yeah. But yeah, exactly. You don't want to lose it. So you want to, put it into, listen to it and then clean it up where you can. Yeah. Yep.
That's it. Got to get it out, man, or you're going to lose it.
I feel like that meditation just is paying dividends. It's like you shut out the noise and you're able to focus in on the things that are tapping into you. Like, oh, nice. I get these ideas on paper because I'm not distracted by all this bullshit,
It's a very interesting point. You just said that because that was one of the huge things I had to learn during the pandemic was getting off of social media and stop scrolling and stop fear mongering yourself. And I lost all creativity during a chunk of time when it was just me focusing on like, what's the world doing? And the moment I like leaned off of social media and my brain started to fire back on, I started reading books again. And like, before I knew it, I'm writing full 2-page poems. I think we got to be really careful with how much we engage with media and social media because it kills you. It kills your creativity, kills your spirit. And it makes you a lot more, your attention span shorter. Like you don't have the wherewithal to sit and do a project. You're constantly like, oh, and you're like, what am I doing? Why am I on my phone again? Shit.
Yeah.
Right. Yep.
That's such a good point. I mean, literally, like today I was sitting on my patio, like, and a hummingbird came and came to the flowers. I'm like, I would have never seen that if I didn't jump off social media. And I still use it for the podcast, but for my personal, I barely touch it. And now I notice those things. Like there's so much beauty around me all the time. But I was looking down at my phone for like 6 years straight. So
it's hard not to, man. Yeah, you got to break the cycle. And there are times when I'll literally just put airplane mode on and just use it as a camera. And like, I will not go on all day. Yeah. I'll go out for like a hike. And I'm like, I let everybody know who cares or who might get anxiety over me not saying I'm okay. I'll like text everybody like, mom, my girl or whoever, this is what I'm doing. Screenshot of the trail. I'm going to be off for like a certain amount of time. And I'm like off.
Nice.
That is like huge.
Huge.
Especially when you do it alone without anyone around, just silence.
Yeah.
You catch up to yourself. And before you know it, you've got energy, you've got creativity, you're sleeping better. Like it's so good for you.
It's so true, man. There's a spot in the woods about a mile down from where I live that I will go and hit for like 20, 25 minutes before work. I'll walk down there, I'll stand in there for 10, 15 minutes, and then I'll walk back. I'm gone for like an hour, but it makes me feel so much better about the rest of my day.
Yeah, that's a form of meditation right there. And there's actually a science behind that. The Japanese have a name for it too, where you go stand in nature and just allow nature to fill you or soothe you or calm you. And what the trees and plants are actually giving off, and even the fungi like mushrooms, which run all underneath our feet, that we have no idea about. They're all releasing things that we need as humans. And when we're around machines and magnets and buildings and cars, we're being depleted of that energy. And we have to naturing or bathing in nature. I don't know what the term is. So crucial to do. I have to do it at least once or twice a week or I will lose my mind. But yeah, back that. Keep doing that.
So Jesse, if you're up for it, we to close us out for our guests, we have a quick lightning round. Just quick hitter questions.
All right, like game show style. Let's do it.
I'll start us off. All right. So if the following, and this is for the old Boston heads, this is knowing our audience here, you, Jesse, being from the Northeast here. If the following 5 bands were playing 10 miles from you, reunion, who would you go see? Sam Black Church, Tree, Only Living Witness, Overcast, and Close Call.
Only Living Witness.
And I think they did, right? They played those shows. And
I was on tour and I missed it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up.
Nice. I got one too, actually. Now I'm just thinking this on the spot because you said San Diego, it's a rad place, and it is. I fucking love it here. But there's one thing that always kills me. Literally, it's the most aggravating thing of all time. We talk about it all the time on here, at least off air, is the work ethic here is pathetic. People don't show up. Emails are 6 days late. It's aggravating. Nothing gets done. We're all from New England, so I feel like the success you guys have had as a band, and I may be answering this question for you, do you think that's an attribute to the New England work ethic? Is your success is based on the fact that you're located in a place where people just work hard and are relentless? Whereas, and obviously there's success in Southern California. I mean, Guns N' Roses are from LA, but there's something to be said there. I guess there's no fucking trivia question here.
No. I completely agree with you. And, you know, San Diego, I've never been hollered at for money and like just hippies all over the beach and Ocean Beach. Like it was overwhelming the first time I went there to visit Adam. I was like, whoa, wow. Like, what are you people doing all day? Like, and that, what I just said is very New England. What are you people doing all day? Like that is blue collar to the core. And I think that drives all of us, but especially me, I'd say, because, you know, when I quit Killswitch, what did I do? I worked 3 jobs. I went back to work. And honestly, that was kind of a comfort zone because that's what I've done my whole life. I've been working as much as I can since I was 14, you know, like it's huge in New England culture. There's this sort of like survival instinct that we have because it's such a harsh area of the country where like you can't like year round be homeless here and be comfortable, where in San Diego, it's not so bad. You could probably figure it out. You know, I think it has a lot to do with location and upbringing and culture. And all of us came from blue collar families, you know, and I especially came from a lower income family where you had to work every single thing you got. And if you don't work, someone else is going to take it from you. You know, that's why I eat fast. I had to like really relearn to not eat fast because I'm so used to like when my family gets together, you're like, survival mode. And like, all right, what do we do next? Got to go to work. Let's go. Yeah, it's a huge part of who I am for sure.
Yeah, and I think the question really is, I think the scene that you guys helped spearhead is specific to that region for that reason alone, because it's a product of the environment. Like it's just not conducive to Southern California. I mean, it literally is so easy down here. Like weather's amazing every day. Like you said, you could be homeless and living on the coast. Like it's just a different vibe altogether. Whereas New England, I mean, same as you. I worked 3 jobs. I, you know, sorted fish species on the docks of Portland, Maine, like fucking hardcore, you know?
Oh, yeah.
So it's just not something you can relate with. And the music definitely reflects that. So,
yeah, you can hear it in your, you know, you guys have really good reggae and interesting hip hop and artistic music from that area. Yeah, it's a different vibe for sure. It's valid and it's artistic and it's amazing, but it's completely different from New England. That's a whole other beast. And honestly, I love it. I love the Northeast. I travel the world. And the moment I hear somebody with like a slightly Maine, Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Rhode Island accent, I'm like, where's that guy from? Oh, I'm going to talk to that guy. And then you're in the bar busting balls, laughing harder than you've laughed in a long time because we're dark, weird motherfuckers.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are.
I love it. That's my sense of humor. Like, I remember when Family Guy first came on and people were like appalled by it. Right. And I'm sitting there like, this is it. This is awesome. This is totally who we are.
Yep.
Yeah. I love that. I love to laugh and I love that vibe. It's, Northeast to the core. I will always love the Northeastern United States. Always.
Mm-hmm. So we were talking a little bit you're doing a little DJing on the side right now, right?
Yeah, I've been DJing for a long time, but yeah, I've been doing a lot of it lately. Yep.
Yeah, lately you've been doing it as you're kind of in between things, and
Right.
you were telling us it's a little different because it's some burlesque, right? So people aren't there to look at you, which is not your day job. Your day job is, or your night job, I guess, is people there to look at you. But in this situation, they're not, right?
Yeah, it's kind of fun actually to be the guy who like helps load the equipment in, because I help set up the poles and the aerial rigs and whatever heavy stuff we have to bring in. And then in between, sets, I'm the guy helping with changeover because it's DIY. It's me and my friends. My friend has a production company called Strange House, and it's burlesque performers. It's music, but it's kind of goth and cold wave and very sort of like I'm not associated with that scene, so I can dip in those circles. And most people don't know who I am, and I'm just there. I'm just the DJ, and I kind of love it. It's fun, and I get to do something different. And it's fun working with people who are attractive women or creative women. All eyes on them. So when I'm DJing, I'm the guy in the background, just kind of setting the vibe, and I get to sit and watch the whole thing. Especially if we're at a nicer place, which we were the other night, where the DJ booth was like up 5 feet, looking over the whole room. It's fun, man, and I can just kind of hide in the shadows and play music. But it's different, if I do a metal night, I'm front and center and I'm engaging. And I'm jumping off stage and going crazy because I've had those nights too. But particularly with the styles of music I've been doing lately, which is to keep the crowd dancing to like Depeche Mode and The Cure and stuff like that, it's fun. And it's just so different for me. But I love music, period. And I love to DJ and I love to share music and have people enjoy it or come up to me and go, "What is that you just played?" and get excited. I love that shit.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah, you can step outside of Jesse from Killswitch.
Yeah, and be like, they call me DJ Proto Killer. I started using that word because I'm old school, so proto, and I'm killing it, so Proto Killer.
Nice.
Because I'm usually the oldest DJ. If I do these types of parties, we did this like a kink bondage party, and I'm like the oldest dude there, and it's like I don't look it, but I am. I know I am, and I like my reference for that kind of music, industrial. Like I'm into Ministry, I'm into Nine Inch Nails, where the younger crowds talking about the scene now, and I'm like, I'm starting to discover new music by doing these types of things. So it's actually expanded my music taste because I'm DJing in something that's not in my comfort zone. So I'm loving it, man.
That's cool. It's fun to like have a shot in the arm where you get something new that you maybe didn't know about or hadn't heard of before, and you find this new avenue to have that happen. That's badass.
Yeah, and then it's pretty funny when someone does recognize me, like the other night, and they're like, "What are you doing here?" Like, "Oh, I'm DJing. I'm just grabbing a beer."
Well, it's not just you though, right? Because Corey Taylor, your touring mate, Slipknot, his wife Alicia, right? She does cherry bombs. That's like
very much the same. Yeah, so that's pretty much the vibe that I'm doing. Like a mini cherry bombs of the girls I'm working for who are doing. There's a little bit of freak show stuff. There's a girl who does like clothespins all over her body, like a girl who does the buzz saw with the metal, and then aerial arts. But I love that stuff. It's cool, like circusy type stuff.
Yeah.
It's erotic. It's sensual, but it's about talent. It's about more like a circusy vibe than it is like a strip club vibe. And I appreciate the talent of those girls. And my fiance is a pole dancer, and she's a badass beast. And she kills it. And I can't do half the shit she does. And I see a lot of these performers, and to me, I'm just there to back them up and support them and give them the music that they ask me to play for them and stand back and watch it happen. And it's really impressive and cool.
That's cool.
And you see the audience going, like watching the tricks that they're doing, going, "Whoa."
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
I also think it's very empowering for other women to see other women do something that's sexy and powerful, but isn't degrading. That's huge.
All right, Jesse, thank you. We really appreciate talking with you tonight. Total blast on our end, and I look forward to what you got coming up here soon.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it, and thank you to everybody who gives a damn. It's because of you guys that I keep doing this thing. So it's a beautiful thing. Many blessings, and everybody out there listening, be kind to each other. It doesn't take much. Just please embrace not being a dick, I think is a good way to go. And again, gratitude for you guys for having me on. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Peace.